Hi, welcome to the Shakespeare podcast. And this month we're looking at Shakespeare graphic novels. I am, as always, Koel Chatterjee, your host on the Shakespeare podcast. So this month, I'm investigating Shakespeare in graphic novels. As always, I'm pitching the podcast to people who haven't spent years being obsessed by Shakespeare, as well as to people who are probably studying and writing about Shakespeare and the Renaissance and may know much more about this topic than I ever will. In either case, could you please comment on my ramblings and share your thoughts? How am I doing so far? Any advice? So, some of my first encounters with Shakespeare was through comic books and graphic novels growing up in India as a child. And this year, I attended a very interesting conference seminar at the European Shakespeare Association conference at Porto, where my interest in Shakespeare and graphic novels was rekindled, which led me to this deeper investigation of graphic Shakespeares. I've also, of course, been rereading Neil Gaiman's Shakespeare graphic novel series as part of my research for September, where I discussed Shakespeare and the Folktale. If you haven't listened to those episodes, I would advise you to go and listen and tell me what you felt about that. I've also noticed that my 6 Minute Shakespeare series has been quite popular on TikTok and on YouTube. So I decided that going forward, I'll start the week with the 6 minute condensed conversation and then publish the fuller episode narrated by me on Wednesdays for people who might want to give the 20 minute episode a go on Spotify or YouTube. Still working on getting it on iTunes, so fingers crossed. So, without much further ado, here's the deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something pretty fascinating. Shakespeare meets graphic novels.
Yeah, it sounds maybe a bit niche. We're just like, study guides.
Right. But the sources we looked at show there's some really sophisticated stuff happening. It's not just simplifying the bard.
Definitely not. The big challenge really is how you take Shakespeare, which is so verbal, so performative, and squeeze it into, well, static visual panels.
A play versus a comic book page. It's a fundamental translation problem.
Exactly. And we found basically three main ways these graphic forms are tackling this.
Okay, so what are they?
Well, first, there's this constant push and pull between staying faithful to the text and making it accessible.
Okay, fidelity versus accessibility. Makes sense.
Then, how the visual medium itself acts as a kind of ethical filter on the stories.
Interesting. Ethical filter. And the third.
And finally, this kind of wild expansion of the stories into, like, a shared Shakespeare universe. A Shakespeare-verse, if you will.
Ah. Okay, I like that. Let's start with that first one then. The textual tug of war.
Right. So you see this split in the market. On one side, you've got publishers like classical comics.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen those.
They really try to use the original text. That's their selling point.
But
Well, because you only have so much space in a speech bubble or a caption box, the text is almost always heavily cut, as the sources put it. Fidelity, but condensed.
so still Shakespeare's words, just fewer of them?
Pretty much. Then you have the other extreme, companies like SparkNotes with their No Fear Shakespeare graphic novels.
Ah, the accessibility side.
Totally. They ditch the original language altogether. It's all modern English translations.
Aimed squarely at students, right? Grades 4 to 12, you said. Trying to
Yeah.
get past that language barrier.
Exactly. Comprehension is the product there. But beyond just the words, the graphic format does something really interesting with interiority. Soliloquies, madness.
How do you draw it to be or not to be? Or King Lear losing his mind. That's tough for stage actors, too.
Well, the sources point to King Lear adaptations using, like, shaky, twitchy, scribbly art directly on the page.
Ah, so the art style itself shows the character's mental state.
Precisely. It externalizes that psychological fracturing in a way that's visually immediate. You see the breakdown.
That visual power forcing a specific interpretation. That leads straight into your second point, doesn't it? The ethical filter idea.
It really does. Because, look, you're taking high culture Shakespeare and putting it into comics, traditionally seen as low culture. That's already a political act, kind of democratizing.
Sure. Bringing it to a wider audience.
But then when you illustrate characters like Othello or Shylock, you have to make a choice.
What do you mean?
The artist has to decide on their appearance, their complexion, their features. It forces an explicit visual definition.
Right. You can't leave it ambiguous like sometimes happens in performance or just reading the text. The drawing makes it concrete.
Exactly. So the illustrator becomes this crucial ethical filter. They're making a visual statement about ethnicity, about historical representation, consciously or not. It confronts potential prejudice head on.
That's a really powerful point. And does this apply elsewhere, like gender?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing adaptations, or more like appropriations, that deliberately give female characters more agency.
Like who?
Well, there are takes on Julia Capulet where she doesn't die. Instead, she survives and becomes this independent warrior for hire.
No way. So she literally escapes her tragic fate.
Yeah, the graphic format allows her to redraw her own story, quite literally.
Wow. Okay, that leads perfectly into the third theme, this Shakespeare-verse idea, mythological expansion.
Yeah, this is where it gets really creative, maybe a bit wild. You have titles like Kill Shakespeare.
Kill Shakespeare? What's that about?
Creates this unified universe where characters from totally different plays Hamlet, Juliet, Richard III, Falstaff, they all interact.
So, like the Avengers, but with Shakespeare characters.
Kind of. And the core theme is often about agency versus destiny. Can these characters escape the plots Shakespeare wrote for them?
That's meta. And really interesting.
And it shows how strong these archetypes are, even when you mash them up and put them in totally new settings.
Any other examples?
Oh, a really compelling one is Prince of Cats.
Okay.
It retells Romeo and Juliet, but from Tybalt's perspective. And it sets it in this, like, Blade Runner-esque version of Brooklyn in the 1980s.
Whoa! So, futuristic samurai hip-hop Tybalt.
Sort of. It's this amazing fusion of urban drama, samurai tropes, 80s aesthetics.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker.
Go on.
They keep the iambic pentameter.
Seriously.
Yeah.
In 1980s Brooklyn dialogue.
Yes. And it works. It just proves how incredibly robust and timeless those underlying Shakespearean structures are, even with neon lights and breakdancing.
That's amazing. So wrapping this all up then, what's the big takeaway for, for someone listening?
Well, I think it's clear the graphic novel isn't just like Shakespeare light for kids. It's a genuinely sophisticated medium that's actively engaging with the canon.
Yeah, it's analyzing, critiquing, and even expanding Shakespeare through its unique visual language. It's shaping how we see these plays.
Exactly. It's part of the evolution of Shakespeare.
Okay, so for our final provocative thought, what have you got?
All right, check this out. Recent academic work has found something really surprising.
Lay it on me.
The basic structure of a modern comic book, reading words and pictures together sequentially, actually has this unexpected structural parallel with a specific type of book from Shakespeare's own time.
From the early modern period? Like what?
The emblem book.
Yeah.
These were popular books that combined images, mottos, and explanatory verses. You had to read the picture and the text together to get the meaning.
Huh. So reading a comic book
Is, in a way, methodologically Shakespearean. The way it fuses text and image is actually echoing a print form from his own era.
that is genuinely surprising. So the form itself has Renaissance roots. Something to think about next time you pick up a graphic novel.
Definitely. You might be closer to early modern reading practices than you think.